see. Okay. We'll give him a minute.
Okay.
Did everybody have a good Thanksgiving?
I did, Patty. How about you?
Thank you.
I did. I ate way too much.
Uh-oh. I had a good Thanksgiving. I convinced my daughter to make the turkey. This is passing the torch to the next generation. I was very happy to be able to bring a side dish, little cranberry sauce or something. So, yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
Yes, got a little tired of ham and turkey, and last night had Mexican food.
Yeah, that's good.
Mr. Entz is joining.
See, here we
There's
are.
Robert, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we will call our meeting to order. This this meeting of the IWMA Executive Committee. Begin with the roll call.
Mr. Entz,
Here.
Ms. Marks,
Here.
and Mr. Verboten.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
All right, then we will proceed to the allegiance, which I will do. All right, please join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, then we will go ahead and proceed to see if there is any public comment on matters not on the agenda.
This time, if a member of the public wishes to make a comment, you may press the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're on the phone, you may press *9. I have no public comment for matters not on the agenda.
Okay, then we will go ahead and proceed to our verbal report from our interim executive director, Patty Taves.
Thank you very much, President Barbeau. First and foremost, does anybody have any questions on the expense and/or credit card report in your agenda packet? Starting on page 3 through, one moment, looks like page 7.
I do, but I think Jan has a question first.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I had a question about the $490 for holiday greeting cards.
Good
That was my
question.
question. That was my question, Jan.
I just am not, how do I say, I'm not big on that kind of expenditure for a public agency.
I agree. However, that decision was made by our former executive director. It also was indicative of what he did last year. And before he exited the building, he authorized the ordering of it. I know it's several months in advance, but he authorized the ordering of these cards before he left the building.
Okay. Well,
Moving forward, that will change.
yeah, we had said to try to cut out any extraneous expenses. I also wonder about the contract for the advertisements about 1383 in the movie theaters.
Yes.
That showed up. I thought we decided not to do that. Maybe I just lost track of that issue there.
So to be honest with you, what we decided not to do for sure was the billboards. Okay, so no billboards, but the board did approve the theaters.
Okay, yes, now I remember. So is there any way to stop that? Because people aren't going into the theaters because of COVID.
To be honest with you, we could stop it, but we still have to pay for it. And, when we reach out to the theaters, they're giving us numbers that say that people are still going to the movie theaters.
Okay, already.
I
And
think
and then the third thing, we don't have to handle this right now, but I would like to have more information about how the legal fees are calculated. There's one charge for $20,000 on the 17th of November. Then there's another charge for $6,800 also on that same date. And then there are several smaller amounts.
And Jen, I'd be happy to supply you and or any executive committee meeting or member and or even the full board with the itemized reports that we get from Mr. Minery's law firm. They do a great job of itemizing everything out.
Good. Okay, maybe that would be something we could look at down the line.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would, before I'll see if Robert has any, but I also was going to ask about the Christmas card things exactly, because it struck me as quite a bit of money for such a thing, but also I come from the federal side where that was just, that kind of thing was just strictly considered a personal expenditure. So if I wanted to send out Christmas cards for my office, I buy Christmas cards. It was just considered personal in nature and not an appropriate expense for a federal office. Now, I know I've seen cities do it. I don't particularly like it when I see cities do it either. And I would want to be clear that, at least from my perspective, and sounds like Jan's perspective, it's not an appropriate expenditure of our money. So we need
Understood.
to put that, and I'd like to actually have that reflected in the minutes that it was commented on, and that going forward, we won't do that in, unless people on the board, it's a great idea.
Understood.
And yeah, and I recall, Jan, that we did discuss the movie theater, but we kind of already entered into the contract and that we couldn't essentially get our money back if that was desired. And I also would, I think would be educational for us, not necessarily every time, but at least once, to see how the legal bills are structured. I understand our legal bills being significant during this entire period because of everything we've been going through. And I certainly hope that someday we'll reach a state of normalcy where we simply don't have as much need for counsel. So, but seeing how they're put together at least once, I think would be a very good idea. Robert, do you have any questions on the financial stuff?
No, I just noticed that we pay a lot of money to DeMilo and Stericycle. And I know we talked about going out and getting some competitive bids, and I think that's something that goes on the regular agenda, so I'll wait for that.
To be honest, with our contract goes with Stericycle until 2023. Just before that, we will go out for an RFP on that. And then in January, we're going to be bringing before the full board an RFP for our outreach and education.
Okay, now I think that's what I remember. We talked about that at a different meeting, so thank you.
Right, we had discussed that, I think, in our September meeting, that we would RFP that. We also indicated that at some point we would RFP legal services, just because it's been a long time. We would RFP, the Stericycle, but it just, since it still has a little bit of time to go, that one we would do next year sometime. So
If I could just, if I could just clarify, I'm not questioning the dollar amounts. I just realized that I don't have any clear idea about how, what our retainer agreement is with the legal firm, or how the billing actually is implemented. So that's something maybe a little study session, little mini study session at some point. It will be helpful.
Yeah, it was when the board agreed to extend or continue or whatever with the existing firm. There was I believe there was a summary of the arrangements, and Jeff, you would know about that. I believe that, I know I've seen it somewhere along the line prior to being the board president, that so I think it's just one of those things that was out there, but it isn't discussed very often. So it certainly is available for review by any board member, and I would assume any member of the public, to see what our agreement for legal services consists of.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Any further questions on the financial information that's presented? Okay, if not, Patty, proceed to the next portion of your presentation.
Okay, and the first bullet point is our new CSD alternate has been elected. That's Daniel Burgess of Heritage Ranch. The votes are in, and the election, he won 6 out of the 12 special districts, 2 for another candidate. 1 special district did not or 3 special districts, excuse me, did not vote, and then 1 abstained from the vote. So again, we're going to be welcoming Daniel in. We're going to be giving him a new updated IWMA board manual. And because of our recent changes to the board, we're also going to be updating the board manual and handing it out to all our board members and alternates, giving everything a fresh, up to date, minus the county, of course, new, let's see, calendars of executive committee meetings, new board meetings, a new holiday schedule, that kind of thing, updated policies. Again, we've also recently updated our MOA, JPA. Those updates will be in that manual as well. So everybody on the board, including our newest alternate, will be getting an updated manual. Moving on from there, paper
Wait, Patty,
procurement. Yes.
On that, does any member of the executive committee want to see that revised board manual before we send it out to the new board members and the rest of the board?
I think that would make sense if the executive
Just a,
committee could
yeah.
give it a once over. That'd be great.
if you would just send it to each of us 3 individually, Patty, and give us maybe up to a week to provide you individual comments back. I don't think it's something, unless, I don't think it's something that we necessarily need to discuss at another executive board meeting. Just if we have some, hey, what about this? Might be some thoughts on anything additional that might need to be put in there.
Love it. Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Noted. Okay. Then next up is a paper procurement webinar. Now we've held one in the past, but this upcoming Thursday, December 2nd, Kelly York is taking the lead on another paper procurement webinar. And this is really important for our 11 special districts and our cities, because this affects staff at every level in there. Anybody in an organization who is purchasing paper. What's great about this webinar is we're going to be having Kara Morgan. She's the branch chief of Cal Recycle, really heading up this SB 1383 animal, so to speak. She's going to be in on this webinar, there to answer questions. Kelly's reached out to staff in all the special districts and cities and ask them for questions in advance so that Kara can prepare and that we can really make great use of this time. These new regulations with paper procurement are extremely challenging. And so I'm really glad that she's taking the time, Kara Morgan, out of her day to really narrow it down for people in our county. Should be a great webinar. We're going to be recording it so that we can pass it on to any city or special district members who actually can't make it for whatever reason. But again, it should be a really great webinar. Next up, city county grant. I reached out to all the cities for a letter of delegation. We are in the process of applying for the city county grant, which we do every year. And so if your city manager or it comes up in conversation, we really do need to get those letters back ASAP so that we can pump those back up into the Cal Recycle grid and get approval for that funding. I've also reached out to the county. They are roughly applying at the same time for about $30,000. And we'll be working with the county via the MOU that we just signed to actually have the support of the special districts on our side. So look forward to working together with the county on that. And again, we're asking all the city managers for letters of delegation. And with
Patty,
that, yes.
On that, is this an annual thing or is this a new?
It is.
Okay, so this is
No,
not a
it's
new
annual.
set of grants for 1383 related things. Or this is an annual thing we do.
Right, and if anything, this supports beverage container recycling or AB 341, which is that mandatory recycling for businesses and schools and multifamily complexes. Bottom line, if you have 4 cubic yards of solid waste or generate 4 cubic yards of solid waste per week or more, you have to, by this law, have recycling on site. The truth is that many locations in our county still do not have these recycling containers on site, or they once did, but were pulled due to contamination issues. So this funding is critical because what we do is we send staff out to solve those contamination problems and or get new folks set up with the recycling that they're required to have. Great question.
Well, your answer raised a question. I'm going a little off track here. Apologize, but you talked about sites. I assume we're talking like multifamily or some small business sites that had a blue bin or a blue
Correct. Mhm.
dumpster or something, but it became so contaminated that essentially the hauler said no more, you can't have one because you don't know how to use it, in effect.
That happens, yes.
But then then of course they have, no recycling containers, so all of their recyclables go in the trash.
Correct.
Got it. Which, I mean, I'm not sure how you get around that. I mean, you either let them continue to contaminate a blue bin, or you give up on them doing recycling, is what it sounds like.
Or you have the IWMA go out and do the ongoing outreach and
Well, sure.
education. Yeah.
Sure. Jan, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Yes, thank you. I think it would make sense to perhaps just send an email to the board members whose cities have not come up with these letters of delegation for the grants. Rather than, for instance, me asking my city manager, did you do that already? If he's done it, I try to minimize the amount of unnecessary communication with my very overworked city manager. So I think that would be helpful. Is that okay?
Yep, understood.
Thank
You
you.
can do that.
Thanks, Jan. Okay, I'm sorry, Patty, go ahead and proceed.
With that, actually, that's the end of my oral report, unless anybody has any more questions, comments, or concerns.
No, I don't. Jan, Robert?
I think I'm good.
We will move on to our next matter, which is any public comment regarding items on the consent agenda. The consent agenda basically consists of 2 sets of minutes from the October 29th Executive Committee meeting and the November 10th full board meeting. Any public comment on these 2 items?
This time, if a member of the public wishes to make a comment, you may press the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on the phone, you may press *9. I have no comment for matters on consent.
Okay, any board questions on the agenda, consent agenda items, or are we ready for a motion?
I'd like to move staff's recommendation on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's please call the roll.
Ms. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Enns,
Yes.
and Mr. Verboe.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next, we'll move to our regular agenda. Discussion item 8, discussion of the status and impact of the county's withdrawal. I think we'll defer to Patty on that, or Jeff. Start with Patty.
I'm sorry, to be honest with you, this is a standing item at the request of this board. So it's not necessarily that we have to discuss anything here. It's if any member in this committee would like to bring up something, and or Mr. Minery.
I have nothing to bring forward. Where I'm working on the ad hoc committee revisions to the JPA amendment. Other than that, as far as with the transitional MOU now fully executed, we are on solid ground, at least as far as what the path forward looks like from now through June. So I don't have anything to add further than that, but am available for any questions.
Okay, Robert, looks like you had a question, and then Jan.
I think Jan got up there first. Go
Did
ahead.
she? Okay, I'm sorry. I looked away and I came back to 2 hands.
That's okay. I am, I'm just curious if we have gotten the actual figures from HF&H regarding the financial impact of county withdrawal on the cities and the CSDs.
Jeff, do you mind if I answer that?
Please go ahead.
Okay, so no, not at this time. They're in the process of doing the calculations.
Well, I know Mr. Hilton was in the hospital and it had to get changed over to someone else, but I think it's been a really, really long time since we've asked for that information. Is there anything we can do to light a virtual fire under them and actually get that information that we need?
To be honest with you, we're actually waiting for data from the special districts in the cities, and it's not due until December 15th.
Oh, I see. So we haven't passed that deadline yet. Okay,
Right.
thank you. That helps clarify for me. I appreciate that. Thanks.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah, Jen, when we had our meeting, Rob Hilton, hosted the meeting. I was present with the several city managers and general managers of CSDs. And, he had some estimates in his initial draft report, but in order to refine it to the level the cities in particular were looking for, he needed some more data, regarding, I think, number of accounts, or Patty, you can correct me, but anyway, he needed some more data. And so
Okay.
everybody agreed they would get data to him by December 15th, so he could refine that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And not just for the purpose of determining the financial impact of the county's departure, for other purposes as well. Hey, Robert.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, maybe Jeff can help here, is in the JPA and in our document so far, the special districts are not actually members of the IWMA. They only have a representative on the board. And I'm curious whether those then special 10 or 11 special districts that are not members of the IWMA are potential candidates to side with the county and really not be members of the IWMA. And I need to have some feedback on that.
Okay, I think I can help with that, clarify this. The way the IWMA is currently structured, the authorized districts have one member. They have one representative who is a member at any given time. Currently, it's Cayuga's Sanitary District. And Mr. Enns, you represent all the authorized districts in that regard. In regards to how the agency moves forward, it appears there is a desire to have at least to consider additional representation beyond just a single representative. And I believe that as we move forward, we know that the applicable statutory scheme provides for one member, a district to be only one member as far as special districts. And so I would not get too concerned about the word member and the implications of that. What we're really working towards is representation. And I think that whether or not the special districts are quote unquote members or not is not really the issue. It's really, is there representation that reflects the intent of the parties. Does that help at all?
Yes, it does. The word that really bothered me was member, and you've spoken to that. And I'm preparing a letter to the special districts to try to help facilitate moving this forward and keeping the special districts as quote, I'll say, members of the IWMA. So I'll have to be careful about how I use that word and try to stay consistent with what our JPA says. So I'll see if I can go from there. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, just please call my cell if you want to discuss these in more detail as you coordinate with the other districts.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff.
Of course.
Jeff, I think though Robert, has kind of raised this question in some form or another more than once. And I think it's a matter of obvious concern to the CSDs. And I think we use the term member perhaps liberally. And we talk about CSDs, remaining members of the IWMA when they're not formally legally members. Is there room to use a word like participant or something like that to be clear that by ratifying the MOA, or if we ratify the JPA version where we eliminate the MOA and just incorporate all of the provisions of involving the CSDs into the JPA, that we refer to them by some word like participant that says, by ratifying this, they are a full participant in IWMA programs and, also generating IWMA revenue.
I think that the word participant is exactly right. That's what we're talking about, because we can't move away from the fact that only the cities can be members of this regional agency. However, the intent of the parties is to allow representation to be allocated differently. And so we may have cities as members and then the authorized district as something else, but all together, everyone's a participant and everyone's bound by the new JPA and subject to the provisions. So what we'll do is we will accept the statutory scheme the way it is, of course, but then allow an allocation of representation that reflects what everybody wants to do.
Right.
It'll be a distinction without a difference.
And that's what I'm going for, distinction without a difference that though makes people comfortable, you know, that they're full participants. Robert,
Yes.
you raised your hand again, or
Well, I just wanted to say, I don't know why you couldn't consider them members. And how the voting is done and the representation on the board is different than the cities. And I think that would be fine. And that way, I think you strengthen the IWMA by saying, here's our membership. And it clearly spells out what the special districts are doing, and it keeps the county from grabbing them. So just a thought.
Thank you.
okay. I did have a question in regards to this. In the attachments to the agenda is included the Board of Supervisors on November 16th. We know they approved the transitional MOU, but also attached is their resolution continuing the collection of solid waste management fee for county residents. This is, if I'm not mistaken, this is just so they're collecting the tipping fee at the landfills from not just IWMA residents, but county residents. Is that all that really is about?
Yes, it's their tipping fee that they can be collecting from their unincorporated, or what I call now the county zone. So the IWMA zone is going to be including the 7 cities and our 11 special districts. And then the other zone is going to be the county zone, which has Los Osos CSD as well.
Thank you. And Patty, I think that you might have hit on a good term. I think we've been bouncing around, you know, because we refer sometimes to incorporated, unincorporated, and obviously with the CSDs, almost all in the IWMA, you know, incorporated, unincorporated is not the right distinction. So I'm not sure, but maybe county zone, IWMA zone is a good frame of reference.
And that's what I say to Cal Recycle too, and that's what they refer it back to me as well, right? There's a new zone that's the county zone, and there's an IWMA zone they're very distinct, so.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question, Charles. Patty, you indicated that the haulers were going to make some estimates of what percentage they collect so that these tipping fees would be adjusted. Are they going to do that by accounts, or are they going to actually do it by what they collect each day?
So what we have is 3 different fees, right? One is that landfill tipping fee that I was just talking to President Barbeau about. So every time a truck goes over the scale, each truck from each hauling entity, if they weaved back in and out of zones, they have to separate out the percentage of collection in each zone, right? At the landfill tipping, or at the landfill scale. Then we have another, oh, I'm sorry.
That's the driver then is making some estimates of what the weight that he picks up, because it's all done by weight, right?
It is done by weight, but the driver's actually not involved in it, right? So each of these trucks are assigned a location, they have a number. And so working back through the hauler, individual 5 different haulers, that's where they're going to get that information at the separation of the zones. Moving forward, you'll probably see a tendency towards, let's keep, just for ease of data collection, let's do some rerouting here, but it won't happen instantly. Okay. Then there's another fee that's collected, which is a franchise hauler fee. We have 5 different franchise haulers in the county, and they're already separating things out based on zones. And then we have a final fee, which is a permitted hauler fee, which is all the roll-offs in the county that are permitted to pick up throughout the county. Again, we've reached out to all the roll-off haulers, and they're already separating out based on where they collect the material from. So county fees go to the county zone, and then the IWMA is separated out. 3 different fees.
And Robert, I would add that well, as I understood it, that the haulers, if they got a truck that's, serving outside Cayucas and then comes into the, your area and picks up trash, they're going to make that estimate based on accounts served, based on, okay, they serve 100 residences out in the area, out in the county area, and then that same truck comes into town and services 1,000 homes. They're going to make that estimate accordingly. Although I'm assuming they have some same mechanism with commercial accounts, but that's the most logical and easiest way for them to make that estimate, because no one will ever know how much trash is really being picked up in one zone or the other. And even if you measured it on a given week, it might be an anomaly.
Okay, I have some doubts about, the accuracy of that, but I think it's probably the only thing we can do at this point.
Well, I agree. I think a lot of these things, complete accuracy is a very difficult thing to achieve.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, are we done with questions to Patty on this item? And are there any other than that, the county, we're under the transitional MOU until June. Are there any other lingering issues that we need to resolve with the county? Or are we really going to be waiting to see if they come forward as the months go by and go, oh, okay, we're going to do this now? It feels like we're over the hump with the county in terms of, because of the transitional MOU in place, and then passing these measures. It feels like we're over the immediate hump. Is that a fair assumption, Jeff and Patty?
That is completely accurate.
Okay.
I mean, now we're at a point, which I think your agency has been heading in the last year, where you're finally now able to focus on how you're going to move forward and restructure. So I guess, as President Barbeau has said before, the Band-Aid has been pulled off, and we are in a rebuilding, healing process.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I just would like to, in terms of the timeline after the holidays, we're going to be looking at just 6 months until the MOU with the county expires under the present terms. And so I just wanted to say that I think getting our executive director, the permanent executive director in place as early in the new year as possible would be very important, because we really want to be able to do some longer term planning, and want to make sure that whatever happens after the MOU with the county, as it exists right now after it expires, that it's not just like some kind of a hard stop, or that it's unknown what happens at that point. So I guess my question is, where are we? We had voted to have Avery as the agency doing the headhunting for this person. Have we gotten any feedback at all on that issue?
So
Yeah,
I'm sorry, is part of the board agenda for this upcoming board meeting.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess I skipped ahead then. Sorry. All right. I'll talk about it in a bit. Thanks.
Yeah, Jen, they had me sign the contract with Avery immediately, as I left the board meeting where we approved the contract. So, that was transmitted to Avery. And so Patty, at at the full board meeting, I'm jumping ahead, I mean, on the full board meeting agenda, it is there as an item. And so will Avery be online to talk about where they're headed?
Mr. Avery may not be online, but what's really important is he's going to be supplying us with some information like salary surveys, et cetera. He's doing polling right now so that we can make sure that the new executive director pay is been fully vetted, and he'll be probably supplying some more information at that time. Honestly, I have to follow up with him after the Thanksgiving holidays to find out exactly where we're going to go, but we are moving forward. As you mentioned, contract signed. We're doing the salary survey, or I should say his agency is doing the salary survey, and we'll be prepared to move forward at this next board meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any further questions on that? If not, we will move to the next item, which is our draft agenda for the full board meeting next Wednesday, December 8th. And that is, the draft agenda is included as part of our attachment. Patty, did you want to talk about the draft agenda? And then I see Jan has a question.
Well, first and foremost, we have two closed session items, right? One was at the request, the first one, item number 5, was at the request of the full board to come back in December with an interim executive director compensation and performance evaluation. Next up is the item number 6, which is again what we just discussed, the executive director. And then we move into the consent agenda. Nothing necessarily out of the ordinary in the consent agenda, except for item number 12, which is an update to policy F10. Has to do with staff compensation. Early on, when Mike Giancola was the interim director here, and then following up with Brooke Stayer, they both wanted us to mirror county staffing requirements and compensation when it came to pay, et cetera. So what we'd like to do is review that with the board again, because we've had some major changes, and then also update that policy at that same time. And then moving on from there, again, same thing, item number 13, on the agenda at the request of the board, just in case we want to discuss anything. Item number 14, ad hoc committee update, probably coming from Mr. Bourbeau, if anything. And then again, item number 15, out of closed session, which is discuss and consider compensation for the interim executive director.
Right, because that has to be discussed in the ultimate outcome has to be discussed in open session. Got it.
Correct.
Jan, you have a question.
Yes, I just wondered, earlier we had said that we would like to have the closed session items at the end of the meeting, just in terms of logistics with Zoom and all. It's just
You're
a lot
correct.
easier technologically to have it at the end of the meeting so that we don't have to have a separate Zoom address and then have this gap of time where we're all scrambling around trying to figure out how to find the link and all that. So I wondered if we just wanted to move that closed session, would it harm the flow of the meeting at all if we did that?
The unfortunate reality is item number 15 is really born out of the closed session item number 5. So we have to have item 5 before we have item 15. I apologize.
I'd asked the same question last week, Jen, when they sent the agenda, and they pointed it out to me that because you have to, whatever you discuss and concur upon in the closed session, you have to then approve in the open session, that in this instance, you kind of have to have the closed session before the open session.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Charles?
Yes, Robert.
The LAFCO board meeting, we were, the staff there arranged to have us go out to a chat room, and they were able to do that from the office. And we really didn't have to do much of anything on our desktops to do that. They kind of did it for us. And I know what Jan's talking about, where you have to go out and then re-enter another meeting. You can get lost. But you might want to check with LAFCO and ask how they did that, because it worked out really easy. and you can get in and out of closed without having to make a big deal of it. So there is a possibility there.
That is a good point, Robert. I mean, I've been in several meetings where you get pushed out to a chat room, sometimes in different groups. You know, and then the moderator or whoever the host brings you back into the main room. I don't, so Patty, Barbara, you guys, Sasha, you guys know that you might want to look at that as a technique that we start the meeting, put just the board into the chat room, you know, for a chat. And then the only thing is being able to signal that we're done and, you know, and it's time to pull us back into the main thing. Because yes, we did actually lose, you know, contact the one time. And that was, and I know I'm one of the ones that was out of contact, so it was not conducive to running a meeting very well.
Understood.
Take a look at that. You know.
Okay.
And if not, I suppose we also can even just on the thing ensure that everybody else has departed the meeting. Is, you know, out of there. So, okay. Good question and point. One of the things, you know, in our meeting with HF&H and the city managers, one of the things that they were concerned about was the kind of draft or the just straw man holding place 50% reserve level that Rob had put into his draft report, and that was too high. And we talked about that a little bit, and that we would come back with a reserve policy. You know, some people talk about, well, you know, you can do a study, and my inclination is, you know, we don't need to do a study to come up with a reasonable reserve level. We can just look at what other special districts or any of our nature that don't have a lot of physical plant, you know, we're not running a landfill, et cetera. And we talked about coming up with something between 20 and 25%. Can we, I'm not sure if we can get that, you know, done for inclusion into next week's agenda, but I wanted to check, see if that was a possibility.
It is a possibility, but one of the last conversations that we had on it, we were thinking about postponing it, and I definitely can get it in the next agenda until we actually have the numbers, the results back in from the cities and special districts. Be happy to do it if you'd like me to. We could put in a policy between 20 and 25% and have the board discuss and review it and possibly approve it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of oriented towards a 25% that, you know, we discussed with the city managers that, you know, that frankly, with the delays in getting approval on the rate increase, you know, it's a good thing we have more than 25% right now. But I mean, knowing exact, you know, all of those precise revenue numbers, I don't think change the basic fundamental picture of, you know, what's a sensible reserve level.
I agree. That was one of my
There's a degree
questions I
of
was
precision
bringing.
there that
Yeah.
isn't going to produce. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. So go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Jen.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were through. No,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's one of my questions too about the reserve policy, because that was something we had tasked Patty with doing earlier, and I think it would be really good to have it on the next agenda.
Next week's agenda.
The
Okay.
full board, yeah. And our city manager did forward me the email that he had sent to Charles that had all these different articles online about how you set reserve policy. And I thought that that was very interesting and sort of food for thought. So it's not completely arbitrary. There's a rhyme, a reason to the rhyme. So.
Well, it is, although I looked at those articles and I don't think we need to go into that depth myself.
No, I don't think the whole board does. It's just that it's, I think it's important to get that established as soon as possible.
Understood.
Okay, yeah, so if you could add that to next week's agenda, that would be good.
And I'll add that as a regular item under the regular agenda for discussion.
Add what to as a regular item? I mean,
The reserve policy.
but if we discuss it and adopt it, wouldn't need to be a regular
Okay.
item.
Under consent then?
Well, no, I wouldn't put it under consent. I think we need to have a full discussion of it. But I'm saying if we adopt it, it wouldn't need to be on subsequent agendas.
Correct.
Robert, do you have any feedback on this?
No, I'm just, I don't think we need to make it 50%. I think we can use a smaller number, 20, 25, and, we have some serious financial things here in front of us. And if there was concern about going to 50, what I'd recommend is we start at 20 and then increase it 5% per year until we get back to 50 or something, if people are concerned about getting back to 50. Not do it all at once.
I think their concern, the city's concern was that we were going to have a higher rate increase because of trying to build back to, or build to 50. And so they thought 50 sounded excessive.
Yeah,
And so, they were looking for a policy to say, that would set a lower number. And I can agree with that, although I'm probably more comfortable with 25 than 20, because with a small agency, it's harder to, with the smaller the agency, I think the larger the reserve sometimes, because they don't have as much flexibility if they start to go in the red. Okay, the other thing we discussed briefly, we talked about at the last full board meeting, we talked about the possibility whether the executive committee should discuss again an interim executive director to help Patty out. We didn't have it on this executive committee meeting agenda. I don't know that it would be profitable in any way to put it on the full board agenda. And so I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that. I am feeling good that we're over the hump with the county as far as that being a major issue. For me, the biggest things facing us now, our 1383 implementation stuff. We got to go through the JPA amendment stuff. I think we're getting that well in hand. And we want to discuss that briefly. The biggest thing I see facing this agency is getting through, and that's an unknown, is getting through this rate increase saga. That's the thing that doesn't keep me up at night. But when I think about IWMA, that's the thing that enters top of my mind about as an unknown uncertainty that causes me a little angst, because I think we'll get through the JPA amendment thing. It's an important thing to do. And I think we've gotten through the bulk of our issues with the county for the time being, but that one that does keep me up. But I don't know if that's enough of a driver to say we need to get an interim director to help Patty out. I've kind of gone back and forth on that in my mind. So I don't know. I'm just looking for any other input on whether we should add that as an issue. I'm not sure who went first, but Robert, I think your hand went up first.
Okay, well,
You guys are like,
I'd be happy to yield to Jan.
No, go ahead, Robert.
Okay, I just am concerned with the amount of what's going on here. I realize we're close to maybe getting over this issue, but I think that in the feedback I've gotten from some of the special districts is we might need some additional help. And I thought that maybe we should do the closed session item number 5, and we'll have a better feeling, and then maybe bring this issue to the full board for discussion after we've done the item 5 on the closed session, and
right,
and put it before the item 15 on the regular.
okay. Well, I guess it could also be part of discussion of item 5, Jeff. Would that be?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right, thanks, Robert. Jan?
Yeah, I think we need to have more concrete information from HF and H in terms of the analysis that we're waiting for. And I'm responding to Charles, to you talking about the uncertainty in terms of the rate setting. I think we do need more certainty, and we need to have a consultant give us the data that we need. And I think that will also inform us about whether we need to have an interim executive director, or perhaps another consultant who could be on call, someone who has a great deal of experience in municipal administration. So I think at this point, I'm not sure if we would actually need that extra help. And maybe after the holidays, there'll be a little more clarity depending on the information we have. I don't know, Patty, what I'd like to hear Patty's thoughts on this issue.
To be honest with you, and it sounds to me like the board is going in a different direction. It sounds like you're getting the executive committee is going in a different direction. It sounds like you're getting feedback that there is uncertainty about my level, skill level, and ability to cope with the challenges that this agency is facing. Honestly, I disagree, but my opinion is not going to, you know what I mean? It honestly matters little. What's important is your comfort level. This agency has gone through some rocky times. It will continue to go through some rocky times. What we have to do is bring together 11 very diverse special districts and 7 cities, honestly, who have differing opinions. Can it be done? Yes. Will everybody be happy? No. We're living in a time where compromise is not necessarily understood, or parties are not necessarily willing to do it. This agency will continue. It will make it through this challenging time with me, or with an additional executive interim director, or even with a new director. No.
I think well put, Patty. I think that to be clear to you, I mean, the city resolutions, of course, wanted us to pursue as soon as possible a permanent executive director, but have gotten feedback from some city managers that we need an interim director in the meantime. But that's why I kind of outlined it in the context that I feel like we're over the hump with the county. The rate resolution stuff is my biggest concern for this agency right now. And so quite frankly, I've gone back and forth in my own head, and I think the entire board has, and the executive committee has, of, do we get out there and get some interim help? Or does that add more confusion situation potentially? But anyway, so I just wanted to bring it up because it's something that I brought up at the last board meeting, and at the board meeting, I felt like there was some impetus towards, okay, executive committee, if you guys can find somebody, talk about it.
It does add an added expense at a time when we have little extra capital or money to spend. It also adds an extra burden on me, because not only do I need to, forgive me, orchestrate what we're going through now, but actually train somebody else at a time when we're stretched a little bit thin. So just a thought.
Yeah, understand. Jan, you look like you were ready to say something.
Yeah, I think this is an important issue, and the uncertainty I was referring to wasn't about Patty's capacity to keep us on track, for sure. No, I was talking about the uncertainty about the rate increase, exactly what Charles, you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we need that. That is number one for me too. And I feel like after the holidays and in the new year, hopefully we'll have more clarity about the financial landscape. So we'll know do we need to hire some kind of interim consultant or director, or, B, can we afford it? Do we need it? Can we afford it? Both of those questions are still open right now. And I just have the feeling that to initiate the search, both the search for the permanent executive director and the interim or consultant all at the same time, it's just too much. I think we need to kind of simplify our lives. And I agree with Charles about the priority is to figure out where we are in terms of the rate increases, and then put it when we meet in January, the next executive committee meeting, if we could talk about it at that time. That's what I would suggest.
So again, by that time, we should have the results, all the data into Rob Hilton and his team. They'll have time to compile it. They'll have time to address the cities and special districts concerns about the Prop 218 or not. Some aren't going to be doing that. And again, we'll have in January a better idea on where we stand, rate increases or not. There'll be a lot more clarity.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further comment, Robert? Any further comments? Because otherwise, I think we're done with the future agenda.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, so the only change is we're going to add a discussion, or we're going to add consideration of reserve policy,
Understood.
and you guys will try to figure out a good way to hold the closed session, and not put us through the double Zoom.
Yes.
Okay, all righty then. Let's see. Let's go back to the top here. I think that's it, unless we have
Did you
parting
take public,
comments.
did you take public
Comment?
comment?
I did not, so thank you for reminding me. Do we have any public comment on the regular agenda items that we discussed?
At this time, if a member of the public wishes to make a comment, you may press the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're on the phone, you may press *9. I have no public comment.
I would add something for clarification for Jan. On the regular agenda, there is the discussion, item 14 of the ad hoc committee to address updates to JPA. We did meet and have a good discussion with the city managers, but Jeff Minery had advised me that given that there were 2 members of the executive committee on that ad hoc committee, that we wouldn't discuss that committee in this committee.
Oh, dear.
So we will discuss it at the full board meeting.
Jen, you're muted.
Yeah, no, I understand the Brown Act, and I'm okay with that. The suspense is not killing me, so.
Okay. Very good. That's a great way of putting it, Jan. Thank you. And well, with that, I think does anybody have any other, anything else to bring up? Nope. Okay, then I think we are adjourned, and we will see everybody next Wednesday at our regular full board meeting.
Do we
Sorry,
need
did
a
we get a
motion
vote?
and a second?
I'm sorry, motion, I'm sorry, yeah, we had public comment. We did not have a motion to approve the draft agenda for next week.
So moved.
Robert, you want a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. That should be the agenda as presented, plus you added one. So
Correct.
With the
Agenda as
reserve
presented.
policy.
very good. Thank you. I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Enns,
Yes.
and Mr. Verboen.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you guys for keeping track of my oversight. So very good. All
Good
right,
meeting,
with that,
Charles.
last chance to catch me on anything before we all say goodbye.
Good meeting.
All right. Thank you all.